So, welcome everyone to this initiation meeting for the inter-rater anorectal manometry study. This is something that has been close to my heart for a couple of years now. The London classification was published in 2018, 2019, and has been quite successful. It's been cited 300 times, but it has been clear to the London group, to myself, and the Americans who helped construct it that there is still a degree of disagreement about how to interpret manometry files. So, with thanks to our sponsors in Laborie particularly, we constructed a website where we can actually test the agreement that you all have with me, with the group, with the classification system to see how well it performs on that level. At the same time, the London group is going to be actually writing to ask you all whether you're using this protocol or whether there are deviations from what's expected. In addition to the simple inter-rater agreement, we're also going to be performing a test to see how the conventional manometry performs against high-resolution manometry. And because some of you are very experienced and others of you are much less experienced, we will also have the opportunity to see how experience influences all of this. So we're now going to move to the website, and I'm going to show you how to use this when you're performing these studies. I just have to minimize a couple of things. Very good. So what you're now seeing is the full screen view of the hrmconsensus.org website. This is a unique platform. This has been constructed for the purposes of this study by our resident genius, Dieter Menne, who's been working with me over many years on this kind of project. It is not Medtronic, it is not Laborie. In the future, you'll be able to upload your own information to this website to compare and contrast. But we, and this is Isabella and myself, we've uploaded 36 cases. This includes 4 normal controls. And we've uploaded them in both high resolution and conventional manometry format. If you look at the screen, you will see a series of buttons on the left-hand side. If I press on this, I can swap between conventional and high resolution. When you're using the examples, here is a list of all the records. Here you see on the left a list of all the records, and the ones which start with EX are examples. There are a couple of important differences between the examples and the actual cases that you're going to be asked to review. The main difference is when I swap between high resolution and conventional view, you're looking at the same case. When you're looking at the actual cases, you actually swap to a different case. You cannot swap in the same case from one to another. This is because, of course, we want for you to compare conventional and high resolution manometry performance. But for this purpose, for this initiation, I'm going to show you the same case in 2 different formats. The other big difference is if you look at this gray band down here, you'll see that we're explicitly not giving you the results of the balloon expulsion test. On all the actual cases, we do, and you can use this information just as you wish, but I will be coming back to that point. So here we see the whole case in high resolution manometry of example 3. You may feel that you can't see that very well. Well, you'll see this bright color here. That's the bit that we're supposed to be looking at. What we can do is we go here to the rectoanal inhibitory reflex. Why do we start with that? Well, because the London classification begins with that. And what you can see here is I can expand the area of interest by pressing on the button down here. If you can see that carefully, down here we can zoom in. You can go even further if you feel the need, and also you can change the pressure resolution. So here it goes up to 150. Here it goes to 100. You can see we can see the relaxation perhaps a bit better, assuming you agree with me that the relaxation is present. So here we see the rectoanal inhibitory reflex, and here this pointing thing. Oh, hang on, that's interesting. I may have to go to a different case. You can see a cursor here, and the cursor is showing you across time the pressure changes. If you look here, you can see the pressure decrease and increase here. Just going to go back here. I'm just going to change this a tiny bit. And, right. I'm going to have to go to a different case. I'm so sorry. So here, exactly the same, rectoanal inhibitory reflex. And I'm going to zoom in. And here you see a case. Now, is this a good inhibition or not? I can place a cursor here. And you can see if I go here on the left-hand side, this panel lights up and it shows you the change of pressure over time. And you can see a relaxation. I'm going to say that this is good enough for me, that this is no disorder of rectoanal inhibitory reflex. I can press on this. You can see here, I've got choices. Is there not a relaxation, or is there a relaxation? I'm sorry about the double negatives. We're following the London classification. When you've looked at this, you can choose to save it. This means you can come back to it later, or you can finalize. If you finalize, it's going to ask you to confirm. And now, this case, you can see here, you've got a little winner's flag for the rectoanal inhibitory reflex. Moving on, tone and contractility. So now we're looking at the beginning of the trace. And here you can also use the cursors. You can use the cursors to see in more detail what the pressure activity is that you're looking at. And you can see here that in the panel, there's an increase over intrarectal pressure of 72 millimeters or 85 millimeters. If you ignore that, that's a reasonable pressure, I would argue. You then move on to look at the squeeze pressures, okay? And you can press here and here. So now I'm not going across the sphincter, I'm going a long time again. And again, you can see here on the panels, the numbers that are relevant to help you make your decision. I can look at squeeze 2, I can look at the long squeeze. You will decide based on your experience and what you've regard as normal, whether this is an adequate squeeze pressure or not. When you've done so, you have this tree diagram and you have to make the following choices. So first of all, is the anal resting pressure above the upper limit of normal? No, I think this is within the normal. So it's no. Is the anal resting pressure below the limit of normal? And I would say no, it looks all right to me. Is the squeeze pressure adequate? I would say yes. And so here I'm agreeing with the majority of people who've done this case that there's no disorder of anal tone and contractility. Now, of course, when you're actually doing the study, you will not see this feedback, okay? And in other cases, you'll see that by no means are all the experts in agreement. And so you will sometimes see 50%, 50% or something like that. So here we're finalizing. But we've still got the most controversial thing to do. We're now looking at anorectal coordination. And now, well, what are we seeing here? Again, we see the pressure We see this not particularly convincing pressure increase here. We see some pressure in the balloon. Is this enough? Well, less easy. Here again, we see we can test with this device. Are we seeing a relaxation? Well, that seems like a bit of a stretch. Are we seeing adequate pressure being built up? Well, it's about 40 millimeters of mercury. Could be better. Looking at the third attempt. Why have I looked at all three attempts? Well, first of all, one probably should look at all the data available, but don't forget that the London classification is basically an optimistic study protocol. That means you may not be completely convinced by every attempt, but if one attempt really convinces you, tells you that this looks fine, this was normal, then really that's the one you should be selecting to make your decision on. Now, in real life, that happens a lot. Here, Isabella and I have selected cases which are fairly consistent. We think you may or may not agree. You have to make a decision, but be positive. Have a basically positive attitude. So here, you have to now decide, was the balloon expulsed? Normally, we give you this information, but not in the examples because we want you to play. So abnormal balloon expulsion. Sorry about the double negative. No. Well, if you think it has been expulsed, then you go down to here, and now you have a choice between no disorder or saying, well, Mark says the balloon was removed from the rectum by the patient spontaneously, but I think the manometry is still highly abnormal, in which case you would click on this one. Now, I might save that, but I might then decide, hey, I'm not happy with that. I want to think about this again. So you're going back here. You might say, no, okay, I don't think abnormal balloon expulsion. Yes. Okay, I don't think it worked. Was the pressure adequate? I'm going to say in the abdomen, no, I don't think it was adequate. And then it says, was there still a positive pressure gradient? I'm going to say no. And so here I'm going for abnormal expulsion. And you can see here there was a fair spread of opinions. And this time I am going to finalize. Now, if you finalize in one of the cases and you've gone against our explicit information that we've told you that the balloon came out and you say, I really don't believe it, then you're going to be asked whether you really want to make this decision. Okay? We won't stop you, but if I tell you the balloon came out, it probably did. So you might want to change the side of the tree diagram you're looking at. So now you'll see here, I've finalized everything. So I've done all of this. I'm now, however, going to change to the conventional view. And here is the same case. I'm going to go back to the rectoanal inhibitory reflex. And now you're seeing this pattern. It's the same patient, so you know what's coming. It doesn't look super convincing, does it? But here, if I want to look at the pressures, I can go here. And here's a tip. If I move here, this cursor moves with me. But if I go down, it stays where I want it to be. And then I can change the zoom or the pressure scale if I want. I look at these numbers here, gives you all the pressures from the balloon, which is high, because of course the balloon has here been filled, and you see the pressures here. And then I move along to here. And so here it's not quite so easy. You have to keep it kind of in your head. Did the pressures go down? Did they go down enough? Well, most of the people here said, yes, they went down enough. It may not be the most wonderful example, but we accept that. So we'll go with the crowd this time. I can then look at tone and contractility. Again, I can place the cursor. The reason there's a hard cursor and a gray zone is that we know that individual points in time are variable in manometry. So we're blurring that a little bit so you get a stable measurement. And you can see here, that's why there's two values here. The P is the point pressure and the max is the maximum pressure within that band, just so you know what you're looking at. And here we're seeing 80s is the maximum. You may well feel that that's normal. So we're going to move on. Let's have a look at this. So we've got 80 and the maximum squeeze pressure here is 114. Yeah, not massive increase. Let's see, try again. Let's see what's happening here. It's now 90 odd. Yeah, it is an increase. The patient's clearly trying. Is he trying enough? I'm not going to tell you. You have to decide. Does this comply with your normal values or does it not? I know what and so I'm going to here go along here. I'm going to say, so it's clearly not hypertension. The anal resting pressure seems to me to be normal. So if you go down here, it means it's not normal. Here it's normal. And now you have a choice. Is this no disorder or is this with hypocontractility? Well, for me, I'm going to go with the crowd. It's for me, it's relatively tight, but I'm going to say that's okay. That's normal. And now I'm going to go to anorectal coordination. So here you see what looks at first glance a pretty similar trace. The balloon pressure's gone up now. So the patient's giving some effort. Here they're giving about 30 millimeters of pressure, but there's not much of a relaxation. Let's go to the next attempt. Well, that's not the most easy to read conventional manometry. Again, the balloon pressure's up to about 30. And here, perhaps the best attempt, 33. But even at the best attempt, the pressures in the sphincter are still 100. Well, that isn't very convincing. So I'm going to suggest to you that the balloon expulsion was probably abnormal. So the answer would be yes. Rectal pressure, I would argue, is actually not that great. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say, yes, there's pretty poor propulsion. Is there dysynergia? I'm going to say yes. So I've gone my own way there. I don't seem to be in agreement with the previous people. I'm just playing a game here with you. You don't need to go with the crowd, and you won't know whether you're going with the crowd because normally it's only when we press on finalization that you will know whether you're with the majority or not. Okay? And that is fine. That's what the study is all about. So we've gone through a representative case in high and conventional manometry. If you want to remind yourself from the original publication, then if you press on the London Bridge icon, it will always give you the most relevant part of the classification. And now the time has come to move to a different case. I'm going to show you a different case here. Yeah. So here we're looking at, I'm not going to go through all of it. We're looking here at a different case. We've got a case where the pressures look rather low. The squeeze pressure appears normal. And here you're seeing a cursor. Well, it appears normal, but according to the machine, the patient's only going 35 millimeters of mercury to the good. Is this good enough? I'm going to leave that to you. I'm just showing you a rather different case so you can see and contrast. I'm going to show you anorectal coordination. So here, this is the most controversial part of the analysis, and I don't want to insist on any point of view here. Now, Adel Baruka, in a large study last year, where I was able to write an editorial, has shown interesting data that you may choose to read. And what we're looking at here is a rectoanal pressure gradient. So here you've seen, I'll go back to it so you can contrast it, the tone and contractility. It looks like this. So this is the patient squeezing, right? And now we're looking at anorectal coordination. And I'm sure you're going to agree with me that this looks completely different, right? So first of all, the balloon pressure's up. And what we're seeing here is a pressure gradient. The pressure in the balloon is 50. The pressure in the sphincter is 48. This may not impress you. But here you see a pressure fall across the sphincter. This is a typical positive rectoanal pressure gradient. And it's a very consistent finding. Ooh, it's a bit odd with the screen selection, but you can see here another case of the balloon pressure going up. The balloon is not full here. This is being generated by the patient, and you can see a pressure gradient. So here I'm going to suggest to you that there was normal balloon expulsion. So I would be going down here, abnormal balloon expulsion. No. Any abnormal pattern? Well, here you can see that some people thought this was not normal. I would have gone for this, no disorder. But you can see other people have disagreed. This mustn't upset you. This is why we're doing it. We clearly have work to do. You can sense what my bias is, but I want you to use your own experience and reading of the literature to make your own decisions. So if we look at the same kind of thing in conventional, you can see here, again, the pressure in the balloon is 50, and through the anal sphincter, the pressure goes down, not up, and there's a gradient going from proximal to distal. And if I go to tone and contractility in conventional, I mean, obviously it's very, very hard to tell what's going on with these line plots unless you get a readout. That's why we give you the readout here. And I was expecting there to be very little disagreement, but there's considerable disagreement on normal values. And so there's plenty to discuss when we finish this study. So I have shown you the conventional and the high resolution manometries. I've shown you two different cases, one of dyssynergia, one of a weak sphincter. In most cases that Isabella and I have selected, there's probably only one really major dysfunction that we thought was present. You may disagree, and that is absolutely fine. So I'm going to go back now to the overview with you guys. So that was a quick run through in 30 minutes. I'm very happy to answer any questions that you may have. Otherwise, I'm going to give you a little bit more detail about certain aspects and functionality before we all get off for the weekend. So, Ricardo or Dorota or Hannah, anyone out there, if you have questions, then by all means, I'll address them.
No questions. This time the sound is very good.
Oh, good.
And the picture is excellent.
Okay. So a question I was asked this morning was whether, well, said, well, I always compare one and the other, conventional and high resolution. Well, in this study, you can only do that in the examples. In the actual cases, you cannot, but that is part of the study. That's part of the study. It may indeed be that you can interpret some things better on conventional and other things better on high resolution. That kind of information is useful, and we want to find out whether that is. Eliana, do you have a question?
No, doctor, very clear everything. Thank you.
Good, good.
Hi, sorry, I have a question. Will we be told if each patient case is male or female?
Um, yes, I believe that we do tell you that along with the information of the balloon expulsion.
Perfect. Thank you.
So if you're using sex-dependent normal values, you will be able to adjust your answers accordingly. What we won't tell you is how many children, and we don't tell you how old the patient is. We don't want to make it too complicated, because that really is, one can get lost in the weeds of manometry readings if one isn't careful. Any other questions for now? Very good. Well, it's 35 degrees in Switzerland today, so it's time for me to sign off and go to the pool. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for your interest in the study. A link to a recording of this session, assuming that it's gone well, will be available online for your reference. But Isabella and I are happy to answer any of your questions and even go online to show you how to solve problems if necessary. Thank you very much. Good night and have a good weekend. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.